I'll tell you who I am in case you don't know. So my name's David Coddiam. I work for Citrix in Cambridge in the UK, and I have been doing this job, which is talking to engineering teams and partners, and then I inherited product management as well for, well, yeah, I do OpenStack as well, sideline and OpenStack. Talking about OpenStack then. I've been doing this job for 7 years, which means Citrix is sick of me, and I've been coming along here for a while, so you guys are sick of me, but you have to put up with me today anyway. Sorry. All right. What do I want to talk about today? So XenServer 7.0 shipped on Tuesday. The keynotes talked about XenServer 7, but didn't actually say it shipped. It has shipped. You can go get it. So please go get it. What I'm going to talk to you about today is all the stuff that's in it, or some of the stuff that's in it, because I only have half an hour. And Alex might give me some more time if I'm really generous or something. Anyway, so tools and installations are pain. Some of you will have seen this sequence. So here's what it looks like. You put the virtual DVD in the virtual DVD drive, and you click next, restart now. And you do that on a few VMs, and you do a few more VMs, and you do a few more VMs, and it's a bit of a pain, but that of course means it's even more of a pain. You can have hosts with lots of VMs on, and you end up looking like this. This is not good for your health. You shouldn't look like this, okay, even in the morning. So, what do we do about it? Well, this time around we thought we should put them all in Windows Update. Windows Update is good for you. It will stop you turning to stone, etc., right? How does this work? So if you take a new template, make a new VM, you put Windows in it, and Windows Update comes in, happy days, and it sticks your I/O drivers in directly. This is good. This is also good when you're upgrading, of course, because if you upgrade a XenServer host, all your VMs will now suck down the updated drivers and life will be happy for you. However, there is a however to this. There are three pieces here. One is the I/O drivers, Windows Update, happy days. Then there's the light agent, Windows Update, happy days. Microsoft doesn't allow us to put the full fat agent up on Windows Update. So, for the moment, you have to still do this install using the virtual DVD. So before you get depressed, obviously end up in the right place. Before you get depressed, however, after you've done that once, it's all automatically updated. Okay, because what we do is Windows Update for the light agent and the drivers, and the full agent comes down from Citrix servers, and life should be good, we hope. What we are doing, by the way, is making sure that this agent will actually come down be installed automatically or much more easily than simply putting the DVD in the drive. So hold that thought. You probably do want the full agent, by the way. It has all this stuff in it. So if you are a freeloader, if you don't pay me any money, then you won't get this. Okay, so please pay me money. Donations welcome. PayPal button is somewhere. What else? If you have done tools installation before, this is actually quite difficult, so I have to keep looking at the screen. Okay, so apologies for not looking at you. You will know that the tools ISO contains a whole lot of stuff. What is all this stuff? So these install the guest agent, all right? So remember, this is all the thing like reporting the IP address out, stats, all that kind of stuff, right? Then you've got the thing that installs the drivers, which you really do need. You also have the VSS provider, and you have everything for really old versions of Windows. And finally, you have something that fixes up stuff in case it went wrong. Oh, and then you've got the final thing, which is installs everything else. Okay? This is a bit complicated. Nobody understands it, and we don't like it either. So we thought we'd do something sensible and clean it up. So now you run setup.exe, and it does everything for you. Tick. Okay. But we also have an MSI, which the setup.exe runs. So if you don't want to run setup.exe and you just want to run the MSI with your favorite magic tool, life is good. Okay? If you really want to run 2K3 or XP, you can still do that. That's, your mileage may vary. No, it's fine. We do test it. But my point is now we have one MSI, and what do? Well, setup.exe runs either the legacy thing, if you're in 2K3 or XP, ignore that one, or for most other operating systems, it will run guest agent.msi. See where I'm going with this. The MSI installs the guest agent, the drivers, and a thing called the install agent. Yes, it does really install an install agent. Stick with me. Bear in mind, the drivers go into the Windows driver store. This is really important. We're not jamming them in and somehow installing them. We give them to Windows, and Windows works out what to do with them. Okay, so basically Windows sees a PCI device later on and says, I have the drivers that bind to that PCI device. I shall use them. Okay, we reboot. And when we reboot, Windows comes in and it says, I found some stuff, I found the drivers, I should install them, life is good. It may want to reboot again, okay, because it may find other things as it goes. So far, so good. So the install agent takes care of working out whether you need the MSI or the Xen legacy thing. It works out what to do with automatically rebooting, which is kind of helpful, okay? And by the end of all this, life should be good. But also, the other thing the install agent does do is if you've got old drivers from 6.x, it will uninstall them and put the new ones in. So theoretically, life should be good. Yes, Yoni?
What about the .NET dependency? You guys are with 6 something. It was really horrible. The .NET 4.
Sorry, if you can repeat the question.
What about the .NET dependency in the guest agent that was really horrible? I believe, and somebody asked me this the other day, so I need to check that that's gone away. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
That would be nice.
It would be nice, yes. I think we've got rid of it. So I could, yeah, I'll see if I can find out and I'll tweet it. Yes, at the back.
What about PDS reverse image? How do you deal with that with the new set of...
How do we deal with PDS reverse imaging? Pretty much the same way you do today. I don't think there's any change. Bear in mind, if you've got an image, today what you do is you stick the virtual DVD in and you install, right? Tomorrow what you'll do is it'll suck down the drivers and then you install the PVS driver. So there's not much difference there. The only thing that obviously we need to watch, to be honest, is when you come to update the image, obviously we'll be allowing you to suck down drivers. We just want to make sure that we don't screw over the PVS stuff at the same time. Not that we've ever done that before. So we'll try not to do that. I see the correct t-shirt has arrived, that's good. Well done, well done. All right, this means that if you're familiar with this install wizard, it's gone away, it does not exist. Like, this is really good, trust me, people hate this, I hate this. It's normal MSI at long last. It really has taken a long time to get here, which means you can do things like interactive mode, which is the default, okay? So next. Or you can run it in passive mode. These are all command line switches, by the way, as well, all right? So you can passive mode it. You can do silent mode as well, which looks like this, all right? So, that was tools installation, so hopefully that's good. VMware doesn't have that. Hyper-V, I think, does have it, so depending on what you're running, you may or may not like this. Health check, I have one slide on this. Basically, for those of you familiar with Citrix Insight services, you can today manually upload some logs and it will tell you what's broken about your system. We said it'd be a nice idea if you could configure this to happen automatically on some interval, Friday, 2 a.m. every 2 weeks or something. And it automatically uploads. It's not anonymous. You sign up with your Citrix account, okay? So I'm not trying to kid you that it's anonymous usage information. On the flip side, it gives you a whole load of stuff about whether your deployment is broken or not. That's the theory. This is the thing in XenServer. It'll show you your pools and it'll tell you what's wrong with them. You can get the full report if you click that link and it takes you to the CIS portal and tells you all the stuff. So the point of this is obviously not real-time monitoring, but the point of it is you can get things like, my disk is filling up, I'm missing this hotfix, I know that you're running a particular version of firmware that is broken or whatever, right? And clearly we can keep adding more and more plugins to CIS, so when you upload the logs we can detect more and more and tell you about it. So it goes the theory. The other cool thing about this, by the way, is that it's not just XenServer. So XenServer does this automatically, but meanwhile XenDesktop, XenApp are busy doing same sort of health check telemetry as well. So when you log in here, you can get a full view of, oh, my entire stack is broken or not, okay? Okay, those of you who have been with XenServer a little while will know we have partitions, funnily enough. They have moved from 4 gigs each to 18 gigs each, and we still keep the local SR at the back there, that's fine. We have a dedicated log partition, oh, somebody likes that, yeah. Dedicated 4 gig log partition, so we don't fill that up, we fill the primary with logs, so yeah. We also did some stuff to avoid it filling up anyway, but we've really decided to bash the small nut with a big hammer. UEFI boot and swap are all there as well, don't worry about those. Said that bit. If you really want the old layout, you can still get it. So some people want to install to like a flash disk. We don't.
So David, does that only come into play in a new install, not an upgrade? Right?
Good question. So no, you can. So new installs definitely. Upgrades. What happens, and I have a bunch of slides on how this works, is we will endeavor to shrink the local SR by how many gigs you need, and create a new partition layout. And there is a whole complex sequence of, if this goes wrong, we restore back. So there was a whole load of quite nasty thinking went into that to make sure that we didn't screw you over midway through upgrade. But if you do need the 4+4, you can still keep it, okay? And my friends at Atlantis tell me that they would still like it. If you're into CPU masking is now fully working again, which is kind of nice. So if you take 2 processors, one is newer than the other and it has features that the other one doesn't have, like feature number 5 over there, you can mask that off, not present it to the VM, so you can move them around, which means if you buy some new hardware and pool it with your old hardware, life will be good. Sports later CPUs, we had a problem which we didn't. So, if you're trying to monitor and manage this thing, we now have a Strongpack, courtesy of our friends at Comtrade who we bought it from. This is in Enterprise Edition, XenServer, and also all editions of XenApps and Desktop, so knock yourself out with that. Just a bit of a convenience feature. If you want to open an SSH console, you can, well, PuTTY will pop out. It's kind of useful for some people, so you can do all the happy stuff with that with DOM0. You can also do it for some Linux distros, depends on whether they're reporting their IP address out. Okay, so if you have the guest agent installed, that will be okay. If you're trying to run away from the enemy, I mean VMware, then no, it's okay. You can convert, so we now support all the latest versions of Windows and vSphere. So there you go. What comes next? Yeah, because I can't do this bit. I can't do a XenServer thing without graphics stuff these days, right? Yeah, it's got to be done. So hopefully the guys from NVIDIA will have convinced you about graphics yesterday, but I'll do some more convincing of you. And I always start off by the point that a lot of people think that graphics is only for high-end stuff, right? So AutoCAD, Photoshop, blah, blah, blah. And everybody can reconcile in their minds that that's graphics and you might need a GPU. You might be able to reconcile yourself to the idea that these might need GPUs, so Google Earth, 3D, flying through things, playing videos in Flash, Silverlight, etc. Okay, you get that. All of the things at the bottom here need a GPU, or take a GPU if you give it to them. Let's be fair on that. If you don't give them a GPU, they'll use CPU, okay? Most of you, or in fact nearly all of you, I don't think will have a XenApp or Xen desktop deployment that uses none of the things at the bottom. Now one person did come up to me this week and said they ran none of these things on their XenApp or Xen desktop deployment, which I was like, wow. So, okay, there are some of you clearly, but only one person I've ever met. Okay, so in my situation, I, right now, need a GPU. So let's imagine I was doing this session from a virtual desktop, and I'll show you why. So this is me on my physical desktop at home, running through a PowerPoint deck, one of the Synergy sessions, very similar to this. It's not videos or 3D things flying around, it's just a PowerPoint deck, okay? Here's the CPU load for over about a minute, okay? And you can see it's 5 to 10%, give or take. So far, so good. Now, in PowerPoint, you can do this. You can tick a little box that says, don't use the GPU for presentation mode, which is a kind of nice experiment. It's not super scientific, right? And I'll tell you, having done research, this is not scientific, but it illustrates my point. This is when I've turned that acceleration off and I'm monitoring the same CPU load all over again. I'll blow that up for you. And it's a bit higher, right? Let's superpose those on the same slides. And you can see we've gone from 5 to 10 to 10 to 30. All right, and you can see that roughly speaking, the jumps are in the same place in time, so I'm not really making this up. All right, you can kind of imagine I might be roughly correct here. The good thing, of course, is you can try this at home or indeed right now if you feel like it. Make yourself a PowerPoint presentation that has a few fade transitions and I don't know, a couple of pictures on. Try it out. So hopefully I've convinced you that things on the bottom might actually use some GPU and reduce CPU load, which is really, really important. Okay, I know there's some tweets yesterday around. Well, hang on a minute. Yeah, it uses the GPU, but does it reduce CPU load? The answer is yes. Okay, so the NVIDIA guys, great products, by the way. I'll come on to some of what they're doing. I want to talk about Intel first. So the stuff we announced with Intel this week is around you can get GPUs or virtual GPUs without any add-on graphics card. Okay, how's that work? Well, this guy is from Intel. He's not from Citrix or HP, despite the background. And he's holding up a physical CPU with a physical GPU on it. So here's my simple version, right? It's got a CPU with a physical GPU on it, and I can carve that up into 7 pieces. Life is good. This is the real version. The real version is slightly more complicated, right? But fortunately, there's only 3 things I want you to notice here. Number 1, there is a green square in the top left that is the i9-15 driver. What that's doing is sitting there and saying, I'm going to carve up and be the arbiter of the physical GPU on the CPU, okay? Top right, you've got the in-guest Intel Windows driver, which, funnily enough, does the graphics thing in the guest, right? It's a standard Intel driver. The i9-15 driver in Domain 0, by the way, we will package in XenServer. You don't need to add a supplemental pack. Okay, that's a bit different from the NVIDIA case, partly because the i9-15 driver is open source, the NVIDIA driver is closed. That's why we do it that way. The third thing I want you to notice is that blue oval at the bottom there. Now, that's basically saying, I don't have any onboard VRAM on this GPU. You need to steal it from elsewhere. So just be aware that your VM's RAM, some of that is getting stolen for the VRAM of its corresponding GPU, or vGPU, okay? But that, roughly speaking, by the way, that diagram looks very much like the NVIDIA vGPU integration. There's not much difference in that regard. Key point though is this thing is on the CPU, so you're not getting the CPU trying to talk over a PCI bus to the GPU cards, all right? So people will say, oh, it's not as fast or whatever. It's apples and oranges. You can't really compare the two. In the same way, you can't really say, oh, it's only got this many GPU cores on it. Those GPU cores are a different power to CUDA cores, right? It may have fewer cores, but there's a lot more, they're much more powerful. What you should be doing is comparing things like, gigaflops or teraflops or whatever it is, right? That's probably the best way to compare the two. And I can't tell you which one to pick either. I don't have a view on that. It is only single socket Xeon E3s today. That means you get 8 threads, 32 gigs of RAM. 32 gigs will go up to 64 fairly soon with new processors. You do need this chipset. If you don't have this chipset, it will not work. You will not say GPU, read the small print, don't come crying to me, I warned you. Okay. Another thing about this, the TDP, so what do I mean by that? Thermal dissipation power of the chip housing, right, is limited to 95 watts. Of that, the GPU can steal, the power going in is limited to 95 watts. The GPU can steal 65 of that if it wants to, which means the CPU will be left with max 30. The important point here is one goes up, the other one has to power down. So hopefully your application is well behaved and you're saying, right, I'm doing a lot of GPU, so that's good. I'm reducing my CPU load, that's what you want to see, right? But just bear in mind that there is that trade-off. You can't run both at the max at the same time. What else? Where do you use this thing? So if you want a demo platform, the Gigabyte Bricks box is a Haswell-based thing. Remember, this is only technically supported on Broadwell. Okay, so you can try this out, it will work. The Skull Canyon Nooks from Intel that are just coming out are a better platform, around about the same price. That's what I recommend you buy. I don't have a photo of it. Moonshot, though, is probably what you want if you want to actually do this. Yeah, apparently somebody loves Moonshot over there. Neil Spellings is not here to recommend Moonshot, so I have to do that for him. No, seriously. Moonshot, Cisco M Series, Supermicro has a similar sort of thing. The point here is simply, you have two choices. You can scale up and you have massive number of VMs per server, or you scale out and you have, 7 per micro server. High density, low power, may be a case you want to consider. We do have customers doing this now for both XenApp and VDI. All right. So that was the Intel thing. Meanwhile, of course, we haven't rested on our laurels with NVIDIA, so we now have over the magic 100 number of vGPUs per host. So 2 M10 cards will get you here, which of course means if you are trying to do high-density VDI, then life is good. What else do we do? And if you want to do GPU for Linux, vGPU for Linux, we support that with NVIDIA too, so you can have RHEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux, and CentOS, and of course Ubuntu. Okay, so again, just keep in mind it's not every Linux distro, it's some of them. And, because doing something completely different, do you want to use containers? Well, the good news is XenServer will do Linux containers and Windows containers. It looks like this for the Windows containers. You need Server 2016 TP5. So far, so good. All right, so you can do this, which means that in XenCenter, you will see your VMs, your servers, your VMs, and your containers within those VMs. And you can do various things about them, lifecycle operations and getting stats out and that kind of stuff. Now Linux and Windows, which means, I think, we're the only hypervisor that does this today because people need to catch up, which is kind of nice. Why are we doing this, though? And the important thing is, you will probably have customers saying, oh, I've heard about this containers stuff, but I don't really know what it means. And I don't really want to blow away my infrastructure and, help. What does this mean? I've got a DevOps team that wants to use containers. How do I do that? And we can tell them, well, look, if you want to get your feet wet and try out containers, go ahead. Use all the same infrastructure you have. You could do 1 container per VM or multiple containers per VM. It's up to you. But you don't need to rip and replace all your infrastructure. And people kind of like that, okay? Testing things out is great. What else? New security stuff. New security stuff is good. I'm going to try and show you a video of it rather than give you lots and lots of slides. Lots and lots of slides is... I could do that and explain to you how it works. I'm going to show you it first and then tell you how. So this is where I take my life into my hands and try and get YouTube to work, which may or may not be successful. Right. And if we just pull this across, hey, there we go. And we full screen it. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is an integration we've got with Bitdefender. What we've created is a set of APIs that security vendors can plug into. Bitdefender is just the first one of those. Okay? And I will be the voiceover to the video. And here we go. Okay, so this is the Bitdefender security console, right? And I'll come over here so I can see it. What the guy's going to do is just show you what VMs he's got on his servers, right? So I'm telling you what it is. He's got two Windows 7 VMs, and he's got what we call a memory introspection server. The memory introspection server is basically a magic VM that you don't have to touch. Okay, it's not a console. It's just a thing that does the security stuff. What he's going to do is get his unprotected Windows 7 VM. Okay, these two VMs are identical, by the way, in what they have inside them. So neither has any security software inside it. And he's going to run a thing which exploits a hole in Word, and he's going to show you it can run the calculator program. Okay, now obviously it could run whatever else you felt like something nasty. When he gets around his licensing problem in a minute, you can tell he set this up. Right, open, and you'll see Word opens the calculator, bang, there you go. So your VM is now infected, life is bad, your security is dead, your data is owned, etc. So now he's going to do the same thing to protected VM. So bear in mind, this VM is not at all different. Okay, I want to be really clear on this. There's nothing installed in it. And he's going to get past his product licensing problem, and he's going to run the same thing. And what you'll see here is Word, instead of doing that, crashes. And there's no calculator came up. Okay, that's kind of cool, right? So something outside worked out what was going on and stopped it happening. It's kind of cool. What he's showing you here is saying, okay, this VM has introspection enabled, good, so it's protected. And he's now going to say, well, I can protect it all sorts of other things, right? So it's about techniques rather than individual viruses or individual pieces of malware. Okay, so these are all the different things you can protect against. Code execution on the stack, on the heap, I don't know, blah, 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 right? There's plenty of stuff you can protect against. You can also protect against rootkits, okay? So in kernel space, you want to protect against something going underneath the OS and hiding away from it. So now what he's going to show you is on the, I think, protected VM, if I've got this correct. Yes, so he's going to open Internet Explorer, and there's going to be some malware which hooks into that, all right? And he's got his new Windows VM that he hasn't done anything with before, so it's asking whether he wants Internet Explorer really. All right, so he's going to double-click that file. It's a no, you can look that up on Google. Shylock's well known, and he's going to run it. Naughty user. And normally what would happen is it would hook in, it would hide underneath, and you'd be owned, right? What's going to happen instead is this. We did not have any security software installed in this VM at all, okay? None. So what we've done is we've detected the threat, we've blocked it, and we've injected a cleanup agent to go and clean up the mess that you had, like remove that file. Okay? Pretty cool, eh? Good. Okay, I'm glad we're here. You can't do this on any other hypervisor, which is kind of nice. So now I'll explain why and how it does that, if I can get my browser, my slides back. There we go. Good. So the question I had on Monday when I talked about this, I didn't show the video, I talked through how it worked. And Helga was saying, yeah, but hang on a minute, how does this work? This is black magic, does it have performance impact, blah, blah, blah. So, first things first, how do you see what's going on in this VM? All right, is it just scanning all of memory and hoping it sees the right thing? No, what you do is the CPU underneath, obviously, has to know where its kernel is, so it has a pointer to the memory space. The kernel obviously then knows what processes are running and where the process tables are, the individual, what is this process, where is its memory space. And of course, if you can read that, you can then understand what process space each process has, and you can keep track of whatever you want. Yes, Yoni, or no, Yoni? You're looking unconvinced.
Which component is that the virtual appliance, or is it?
Good question. So what's actually doing this? So yeah, what you've got is the API XenServer provides for a suitably privileged virtual appliance to see memory. The virtual appliance is then going, okay, I've looked at the memory, I can now understand it, as in, what processes do I care about? So for example, I want to protect Outlook, or maybe Flash actually is a better example, right? I'm going to look and see, right, Flash owns this process space, I'm going to look at the memory pages for Flash, right? I'm not monitoring the entirety of memory for no reason.
I hope you won't have exploits on the XenServer APIs.
Good question. So are there going to be exploits on the XenServer APIs? The good news is you're already trusting me to keep your memory safe because I already own the lot. So, you're too late. If I'm going to get exploited, you should be doing it today. But yeah, arguably we don't want the APIs exploited. The good news, well, I'll come on to the good news in a minute. And is this bad for performance? All right, so far, we reckon it's kind of a 10% hit. Now, obviously it depends on what you're protecting and basically how many memory writes it's going to do. Because if you've got something that's hammering memory continuously and doing nothing else, then it will take more overhead than not. The purpose of this thing, though, is to say, well, I'm going to protect certain things. I'm not trying to, it's not a traditional AV program that scans every block, right? It doesn't do block scanning. So if you want something to scan every block on your SAN, this is not it. You want something else as well. But the good news about this is it protects against zero-day attacks, because you're not looking for a particular signature. You're looking for, oh, somebody tried to execute a page of memory that was marked as read-write. And what you don't do rather, is you don't put code you're going to execute in a page that can be written by, the user. If you think about a buffer overflow attack, right, you put in some data from somebody to keyboard, and if you overflow, that potentially goes into a region that might get executed. The good news is, when you have a region where you're going to put in that input, that's a read-write region, you never mark that as executable. Okay, so if the memory introspection engine sits there and says, hey, you tried to execute something that wasn't executable, you shouldn't do that, I'll block you. And that's just one type of attack it protects against. So what we are doing is we've announced a white glove program with Bitdefender. So whilst the APIs are production ready from our point of view, we want to make sure that there's no weird corner cases, performance problems, etc. We've done a whole load of optimization on that already, but who knows? There are going to be things, there are going to be rough edges. If you want to sign up, let me know. Key points on this though. So number one is, hopefully you've all recognized that I said no agent, really no agent, really no agent. Okay, not even a Citrix agent. VMware will tell you that they have agent as AV, and it's not a bad solution, by the way, but it does need a VMware security thing in the VMware tools. And what that does is then offloading to a security vendor's virtual appliance. Okay, so there's still an agent there, and the problem with an agent is that the first thing a virus or whatever does is goes in, gets underneath, and turns the agent off. And Bitdefender have a great demo, by the way, of a piece of malware coming in and disabling vShield. So this really does happen. Okay. Because we're being process specific and attack specific, you can narrow this down, but it's not signature based, so it's all about being able to detect 0 days. 0 days are bad things. It isn't a file-based scanner. You do get those cleanup tools injected straight in, as you saw. Okay, so remember, there wasn't an agent. I've just pushed that in because I own all of memory, or I have access to all of memory, so I will trip over a cable. There is no agent to attack, so to Yoni's point, provided the APIs are not exploitable, life is good, and you trust me already. And nobody else does it, so that's kind of cool. So, there you go. Alex.
No, 8 minutes.
8 minutes! Awesome. Okay. Don't worry. It's bigger and faster and better. So what is it bigger and faster and better? We have more RAM per host. It's gone from 1 terabyte to 5 terabytes. It's gone more CPUs from 160 to 288. It has more VBDs per host, virtual disks per host, which means app disks. Okay, so those of you into app disks is really important. You can now do 4,096 across the whole host. And if you're a VM, you get more RAM per VM up to 1.5 terabytes. So if you're SAP or SQL Server or whatever it is, life is good. Again, app disks, 255 per VM, so you can knock yourself out with that. Okay, I'm going to speed through this bit, except I've got to remember what I was going to say. So previously, in domain 0, you have lots of different processes running. Some are for I/O, some are for control, right? And of course, when you get lots of I/O, all the blue things, they squeeze the control domain stuff, which means if you're not careful, that the control domain doesn't respond very well. All right, so those of you on 6.x, this can happen, not often, but it can. So what we've done is we've protected those control domain, or those management tasks with C groups. So C groups basically mean there's some amount of quads per process. Think of it that way. And what does it do? Well, on 6.5 and 6.5 SP1, those are the yellow and red lines, this is the amount of time it takes to boot VMs. And boot means get to a login prompt. Okay? And what you see here is two things. One, the yellow and red lines go up steeply. So that means every new VM takes longer and longer and longer. It gets worse and worse. And they're very jagged, which means if you were VM number 64, you might have got a much better logon time than VM number 65. The green line is XenServer 7.0, and again you can see two things. One is it's a shallower line, which means less time to get to a logon prompt. This is good. And B, it's not as jagged, so it means desktop 64 has the same, roughly speaking, logon time as desktop 65. This is a good thing. What else have we done? Lots of stuff on performance. I'm not going to take you through millions of these, but I will tell you, if you want a slide that's cut off on the left, aggregate inter-host throughputs, this is networking, has gone up to 100 gigs a second, so if you want to push data between VMs on the same host, you can do it very, very fast. This is kind of good, for example, if you're using, let's say, an HCI appliance, so you've got a thing serving storage to a VM on the same host, or a PVS server. Single VM intra-host throughput, again, so you're doing one VM to one VM instead of aggregate. IOPS, I've got a bunch of these graphs, but basically it's gone up by about 50%. Depends on what metric you measure, etc., etc. It is not the end of the road for XenServer, as much as Alex might wish it to be. So it's got a full 5-year life from now. We are looking, by the way, at doing an LTSR version of XenServer, not this time, but next time. So you get 5 years now and 10 years hopefully next time. Don't hold me to that. I will prod you with this one. This is what was in the keynote, and it's true, right? If you buy at list, this is what it will cost you extra. You don't have to use XenServer, you use VMware. You know, it's a good product. I'm just telling you it costs a lot of money, right? You don't necessarily need to use it. By the way, you won't get some of the stuff we talked about. So the agent SAV, the Windows Update. By the way, we also have SMB3 support, so if you want to put your VMs on SMB storage, you can. And you can try it out for yourself. It's available today. Did I mention that? XenServer is only available from, no, wait. You download XenServer 7.0. It's a good product. Knock yourself out. Questions?
What about new APIs for performance metrics?
What about new APIs for performance metrics? What are you actually looking for?
There were some stuff missing in when you compare it to vSphere. Some latency stats for VMs.
Okay, send me an email and we can look at it. It wasn't something I was aware of. So yes, we can look. Yeah.
Any public information when this thing will be ported to NetSkills?
When it'll be ported to?
When the NetSkills SDXs will be upgraded.
Oh, so when is SDX going to use 7.0? Is that the question?
Yeah.
The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is that they are speeding up that move to process. So I don't have a date for you. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, another question about I/O. So
Yeah.
Flash, actually not necessarily related to server, but since you do I/O, that's maybe related. So does it make sense to use SRV for individual VMs? Let's say if that's process is automated within VMs to pretty much.
So should you use PCI pass-through of SRO VFs to get better performance?
Yeah.
Okay. So as usual, it depends. Okay. If you want absolute bleeding edge performance from your network and you have a 40 gig card and you want a VM to saturate that 40 gig card, an SRIV VF or a PCI pass-through of the whole card may be the way forward for you. The only use case I'm aware of for that is a Netscaler SDX, and that's what they do. Okay. For everybody else, if you look at the throughput we can push now compared to what we used to, I haven't had a customer saying, oh, I must have PCI pass-through, because you can get 10 gigs out. And most people are more than happy with 10 gig out from their VM. If you want more than 10 gig, that's a different story.
But as far as VMs stepping on each other, that's not an issue, right? So
No. VMs stepping each other, I don't see as an issue. Alex, you had a question.
I just told you that there are 2 minutes left.
2 minutes. Is that where I stick one finger up at you? All right, more questions. Any more questions? Any burning issues? Are you blinded by science? Confused by my patter? Yes.
When are you going to do something impressive with XenServer?
When are you going to do something impressive with XenServer? I know. Is it where you see my face on the boot up screen? That would be impressive. And it talks to you. Look, in all seriousness, I would say 6.5, we did a lot of good stuff in the sense of performance, and there was some, it was kind of a bit of a renaissance, I'll be honest. I think 7.0, we finally have a load of features which other people don't have. And now we can start talking about, well, yeah, price is good, right? It's included, you're entitled to it, so you get it for free, quotes. But actually, you should think about using it for all sorts of other reasons as well. And that's what we're aiming to do, right? So the Intel stuff, the Windows Update stuff, and the AV stuff is all stuff that's unique to XenServer. Yes?
Last question. It's got a great line between the entitlement for XenServer people, right, versus the enterprise version. Right? There's like a loading feature. Can you name the features that the enterprise, the version that you pay per socket has, and then the XenServer entitlement as well?
Good question. So what does XenDesktop entitlement not have that Enterprise does? Today, the only feature that Enterprise, well actually everything in Enterprise is included in XenDesktop and Appt Platinum. That's the first thing. Okay. The only feature that is additional in XenDesktop and Appt Platinum compared to any other edition of XenDesktop is the in-memory recaching feature. All right. And I will tell you now, no commitments, etc., but my intention is to make all editions of XenDesktop and App include XenServer Enterprise and stop the confusion.
Because that's a bit confusing.
Alex is making noises at me, so I shall stop. Thank you for your time. Come and find me afterwards.